guys, and welcome back to Martin's Daughter. I am so excited today because we get to talk to Xi Van Fleet. I didn't know a lot about the experiences in China and Vietnam and what they went through until 2020, when a lot of people started speaking up. A lot of people started saying, if we don't have America, this place that we came to seeking refuge, then where do we go from here? So I've been wanting to have her speak to us for a while, because I think that when you hear from a person's voice their own experiences and what they're seeing, it makes it come to life. So welcome, Xi.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for finding me, Carrie.
Yes, I'm just delighted that you could come. And I want to jump straight into it because we don't want to have you don't have a long time. Just tell us about yourself and why it is. I really want to highlight those warriors, those people who are standing up to what we're seeing right now. So what is it that brought you into, for lack of a better reason, the fight, right?
Yes. Yeah, I grew up in China, and I left China when I was 26. So I had a really 26 years in China, and I spent my entire school years in the Cultural Revolution. So I am a child of Mao's era. Coming here was my dream come true, of course, like many other Chinese. And I thought I left communism behind forever. And I came to a place where freedom was just there for me to enjoy. And freedom I thought it's always there. So I concentrated on achieving my American dream. To me, my understanding of American dream back then was to get good education, get a good job, buy a house, raise a family, and which I did. But in the past decades or more, or longer, I noticed something going on that remind me of the Cultural Revolution. And it's really, some of them are really bothersome, but it was 2020 to see that our city being burned by mobs that remind me of the Cultural Revolution, the Red Guards. And that's the turning point for me. I can no longer stay silent. And I'm just like a many Asians, typical Asians. We usually kind of shy. We don't get involved. And we just, do our own thing and hoping someone else will do the job for us. But not anymore. So I decided to get involved. I joined the local conservative group and went to school board, and have no idea that the video went viral. And then when I got the call from Fox News, I was really, really just shocked, and I did not know whether I should say yes or no, knowing that if I say yes, I'm just going to lose my privacy. I'm going to be in the public eye, and was really scary. But there's something just larger than me and just pushing me that direction. And I told myself it's no longer about me, it's about America. So I took that step.
So what is it that you, being Chinese originally, what were you taught about the government? What I've realized is that, like you, a lot of people have never talked before. A lot of people don't want anything to do with the government because they know the control that it can have. So what was that like, and what are you seeing today that's paralleling?
In China, you don't even think about, all you think about is follow correctly. And it's nothing about challenge the authority, the government, but follow. If you don't follow correctly, and then you can bring ruins to your life. So we never, back then especially, no one dared to challenge the CCP. Actually, the CCP took over China in 1949, and they did a lot of political campaigns. They wiped out class in the economic sense, just wiped it out. Land and property were confiscated by the state. So China became a country without class. So Mao felt kind of confident that everything was under control. So I don't know, intentionally or by plan or whatever. He encouraged people express their opinion and make suggestions to the CCP and to him to see how can they do better. And it's called the Let 100 Flower Bloom campaign. And a lot of intellectuals, especially the intellectuals, fell in the trap. They started to honestly criticize the government, mostly for the intention of improving the government. And what happened? He turns that campaign into an anti-rightist campaign. And those people who expressed any opinions, not opinions that were challenging the authority, just any of it, all become rightist, and the punishment was severe. Exile, demotion, and so
Is that where we
learned.
see the picture where they put the cone on their
No,
head?
no,
No.
it's before that. It's before the Cultural Revolution.
Oh,
It was in the late 1950s.
okay.
I'm just telling you that is the campaign that effectively silenced everyone. People learned if you speak up, that's what's going to happen to you. So free speech was totally gone. During the Cultural Revolution, it's different. That a campaign for the Red Guards to get rid of what Mao called corrupted bourgeois capitalist CCP bureaucrats, because he feel like they're the one that challenged his authority. So we're talking about free speech. Ever since that anti-rightist movement, free speech was totally dead in China.
Wow. So before then, was China pretty free?
No, it's not. But communism, socialism cannot tolerate any dissenting voices. That's something people need to learn. And it's in any communist country, free speech is absent. That's the only way they can control the population. And so actually we talk about this before we start the recording, that we want to concentrate on the division. In my speech at the school board, I said specifically, this is familiar to me because in China, Mao used class to divide people. Here, the left used race to divide people, which now known to most people as CRT. So we can, drill on that topic. I think there's a lot we can talk about.
Right. Yeah. The division. It's so strange to me that people don't see how the level of what division, like what I'm seeing now as a person of color, are people afraid to make eye contact with me. I moved to a new city and I'm a relatively outgoing person. I'm friendly, I'm kind. But I see people, I can see the fear. Is she going to be like the rest of them? I actually had somebody go to a neighbor and say, what are we going to do having this person? And they assumed my political values, and they were wrong. But they literally said, "What are we going to do having a Democrat in our neighborhood?"
Yeah.
and I laughed because they don't know me, but they're being taught to project all of these ideas on me that I find extremely divisive. And when I say I'm not that person, even in our state, even going to Congress, they're saying, well, then you don't have a right to talk because you don't represent your collective.
So if you let me, I can talk about how Mao and CCP divide China, and then we can see how similar it is to CRT here. Okay, so the CCP and Mao, they use the tactics in the so-called classic Marxism, which is class. And that's what those communist countries use to divide people, like Russia, Vietnam, and all those older communist countries, because they use class. The CCP took over China in 1949, but way before, in the 20s, Mao did a paper. It is on the classification of the Chinese society. So he did a study, and he divided people into categories, and people with land, people with property, people who have nothing, the proletarian. So he divided up, and he said, Here is the situation. 99% of the people are the people that we can either call our base or our allies. We're going to isolate those. That's 1%, those with land and with property. Does that sound familiar? Bernie Sanders, and he successfully used that tactic to rally the people behind him with this grand promise, equity. Does that sound familiar? He told the proletariat, yeah, the word means you don't have anything, and that I give you the land, the property, the wealth from the rich. Sounds good. So most people followed him, especially the peasants, because they made up like over 80% of the Chinese population back then. They really helped Mao into power and to defeat the nationalist government, which is now in Taiwan. Okay, so in 1949, the CCP took over China. Right after they started many political campaigns, one of them is the land reform. So they took confiscated land from the landowners, and not only that, and they set the peasants, the poor peasants, against the landowners. So estimated that up to 2 million landowners were executed. What's their crime? Owning land. And so they set the people up against each other. That's
And
always.
how much land are we talking about? Like, how much land did like these landowners own? Were they just like?
Yeah, they have some kind of criteria. So like if you have land and you do not work on the land, you employ farmhand, and then you're a landowner, even if you just have a few acres.
Wow.
Okay, just for example, if you just don't have people in your family that could do farm work, that maybe they're all in the city doing some other business, and then you're a landowner. If you have land and you work on the land, you employ some farmhands, you're called rich peasants. So you are better off than the landowner. You are the next category. Those are called the enemy of the people, the class enemy. They are the enemy. But this is very arbitrary. In places that were so poor that nobody owned anything, and then they can just change that criteria, and it just in some places, if in your home you have 2 stoves with 2 walks, you're landowner. I mean, it just really become arbitrary.
How can we
wherever
teach each other to hate each other?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yes. So
and to have like a constant resentment that level goes more and more and more each time. Like, we talk about equity. I just to draw it back to America, we're talking about equity, and these people are like, well, why do we'll never be able to afford a house? Okay, so if we give you this small house and say, now you have a house, now you have a little plot that you can have your own garden in, why do we think that if we start off with seeding people with resentment, that they're not going to look at their small house and look at the neighbor next door who has separate bedrooms for every one of their kids and say, well, why do they have more, right?
Yeah. No, actually, the communism and socialism, and they are against the private property. Right. So actually, after the land was redistributed to the peasants, they had land for like 3 years. And after that, they started the collective farming campaign that's called commune. So all the land was taken back. That's the thing. The people have to understand. When you want something from the government can give you by force or by coercion, and they can take it back. And that's what happened in China. So they took everything back. So now nobody owned anything, and the state owned everything. and then they become landless again. This time, not only the poor people, even the former landowners, they all become landless. And that's what communism, what socialism eventually will end up, because they're against private property.
Well, and I wonder, do they have the same kind of Marxist ideals that our quote unquote Marxists do? You know, BLM says we're trained Marxists, and then they buy multiple homes.
Yeah.
And you just go, did they benefit that way in China as well?
People in power always benefit. The equity is never true equity. People in power have things that ordinary people did not have. When everyone was going hungry, they had plenty to eat. When people were skinning bones, Mao was overweight. So, so it's always, we have to compare these two brands of Marxism a little more carefully, because China, it was class. But I need to finish the story. So since the land reform, so everyone has to be classified. Everyone was given a label. So you're landowner, and then that's your hat. It's always on you. And a rich peasant, if you are middle class peasant, you are the ally. If you are landless proletarian, you're at the base. You are what later we call the reddest of red class. So everyone that belong to the base and ally, they are red class. Everyone belong to, everyone who were landowner or rich peasants, they belong to black class. So China was divided into two classes. Everyone know what class you belong to, what is your hat or your label, and that's not it. That is hereditary. You pass it on to your children and children's children. And with a label like a black class, you're a second class citizen. So that's how they divide people by class. And that did not work, because Karl Marx predicted that his revolution would happen in highly industrialized country like Great Britain, like Germany, France. That did not happen. The first place that was succeeded is Russia, which is a backwarded country, and then China, right? So that did not work. So are you familiar with Antonio Gramsci?
A little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But he was a Italian communist. He said, okay, the class struggle, that would not work, because the capitalist countries are doing so well that even the workers benefit from it. Especially in America, we have this thing that really bothers them. It's called American dream, that everyone can succeed as long as you work hard and you have talent, right? No, they have to do something else. So he was the one that come up with this idea. In order to overthrow the capitalism, they have to start with culture. So they have to, what he called hegemony, and just anything that is traditional, that is the foundation of a society, they should start tackling. So that includes family, religion, institutions, all those traditional values.
Disneyland.
Yeah, that's what we have here.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it does seem like they're coming after the family. They're coming after, was it Gramsci? I feel like it was Marcuse who gave a list of the things that we need to attack. We need to attack media. We need to attack education. A strong emphasis on education. We need to attack our institutions and our families.
In America, if you want to divide people, those who are talking about values, to attack values. If you want to divide America, I mean, even the people, anyone with any common sense will say race is the best way to divide people in America, because that would not work in China. China, even though there are minorities, they just like 95% are Han Chinese. So that won't work.
Oh, and the
So,
Uyghurs, right? The Uyghurs
yeah,
today.
the Uyghurs is the minority,
Yeah,
like a 0 point some percent.
right. And here with our melting pot, you can break up. It sounds like his breaking up of the class is just like our breaking up of intersectionality. All of those points that divide us seem like that's the biggest focus in our schools is how many ways. And they say, well, that's how we're showing what an individual you are because you're made up of all of these parts. But just like the dissent that you were talking about, if we dissent, if we say, okay, well, I'm LGBTQ, but I also identify as a Christian, so, or
Mhm.
whatever it is, as soon as you break away from that part, it's open season for you. It seems like
Yeah,
you become that target.
yeah.
So I've wondered, and you can either put this to rest or confirm which way, but I've wondered, I heard from some people during the rallies of 2020 when the Chinese and, well, just a huge Asian community came out and spoke. They talked about death by 1,000 cuts.
Mhm.
So, and they also talked about in school, I remember somebody saying that there was a chant that you guys would say, like how we would say the Pledge of Allegiance. It was some sort of a, one day China will rule the world type of thing. Is that where we're headed? Do you think that a lot of this is specifically China's control in America? Why we're
I,
not so.
I'm sure there is a factor there, but I think this is very, very important for people to understand. This brand of Marxism is homegrown, and it started as early as 1920. And of course, mostly you can just trace back to Frankfurt School in 1930s. So those Marxists are directly from Germany. They want to destroy capitalism. So, and they are also influenced by the communists in other countries, except including Maoism. Yes, but this is not a direct import from China or from Russia. This has been here for a long time. And people need to be familiar with this phrase, long march through the institutions. Yeah, so do you know what long march refers to?
The long time that it's taken to infiltrate our schools, starting
Yeah,
with
that
starting
is a
with the Ivy
term.
Leagues.
That's what it means. But the term long march is from Mao. When Mao was fighting war against the nationalists, they were encircled. They were just about to be wiped out. So in order to reserve whatever troops they have left, they launched this long march, about 2,000 some miles from south through mountains in Tibet to go to the north in the place called Yan'an, and where they made it their base. That's called the Long March.
Wow.
And obviously the Marxists in the West love that phrase. So a German communist used that to make this new phrase, long march through institutions. That means we're going to it's not overnight. It's not a violent revolution. This is going to be slow infiltration. And we're going to take over American institutions such as higher education, public schools, media, political parties. Now we see it in military. And I told people, I see, what I see, I know it's communism. And the communist infiltration in America is complete. If we see it in military, which is all, we can see it just for everyone to see, right? They implement our CRT, they implement gender identity ideology, and yes, it's infiltrated at every
Everything.
level,
All right.
every level.
All right. And we're about to wrap up, but I have to ask this question because I don't want to leave on that note. That is such a depressing note. It really is. I mean, this is horrifying stuff.
Yeah, it is.
But the fact that it's complete doesn't mean that we're without hope, because if it did, you wouldn't be speaking up. I wouldn't be speaking up.
Yes,
All of these people wouldn't be speaking up.
you're right. You're absolutely right.
So where does the hope come from? What can still be done?
Okay, here's what I think had happened. Okay, do you know that expression, boiling frog?
Mm-hmm. Slow
Yes.
boiling.
And
Yes.
yeah, the frog thinking they're taking a hot jacuzzi, and actually they're on stove. And so the trick is don't turn the heat up too fast. So they won't realize what happened to them until it's too late. Okay, that's what's been happening ever since the 30s until the left turned the heat too fast, too quickly. That was 2020. So now they're exposed. Actually, they lost their cool. They feel desperate. They feel scared. So they turn the heat too fast, too much. So now you are in the fight. I'm in the fight. So even though I think we're at the edge of the cliff, but because people are waking up, we're now woke, we are just awakened. And because you and me, a person who never spoke publicly, get into the fight, that's the hope. The hope, I have to tell everybody, the wokeness is from above. It's from the elite of very few. What we are doing is grassroots. We will win, and we have to win. There's just no other choices.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to thank you so much for spending the time with me, and just hopefully, every little chance that we get, sounding the alarm and saying, you know what, don't go any further. You need to stop. And I think part of that, don't go any further, you need to stop, is about, is just whatever we can do, every single opportunity we have to educate parents, right?
Yeah.
And also to
Yes.
educate our youth, because I find it extremely frustrating that in my entire time in education, I never heard about Mao, ever.
Because they don't want you to know. That's why I made it a mission to educate Americans, to educate, especially if I have access to young people. They need to know.
Absolutely.
They need to know what it is really like to live under communism and socialism.
Yeah, because it's glorified.
Yeah.
It's glorified, and they think that, why should we have to work? Why should we have to pay our dues and be part of the working class? That's just oppression. And it's like, you don't even know what oppression is. Talk to people who came from another country. So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you've had with me, and good luck, and hopefully I'll see you around on this battlefield.
I'm sure we will. I'm so glad to get to know you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.